Welcome to Podtendo, a Nintendo podcast, where they analyze, reminisce, and replay the glory of old Nintendo games.
Fear has no form. Fear has no name. But now, fear has an address. Castlevania Symphony of the Night for PlayStation from Konami.
Hey guys, welcome to the Podtendo podcast, where we analyze, reminisce, and replay the glory of old Nintendo games. We can contact it on Twitter at Podtendo Podcast. Email us at podtendo@gmail.com. We're also on other socials like Instagram and maybe Facebook, and I don't know if there's other stuff. YouTube. There's a YouTube presence at some point. But you're not here for that kind of stuff. You're here for our podcast today, and I'm your... Oh wait, we're a review, let's play, retrospective pop culture show? Nailed it. I'm your co-host, the creeptastic post-production Nick. I'm sorry, there was some type of weird dropout. You couldn't hear my voice. I think the rest of the episode sounds good. I apologize. Enjoy.
Tyson Belmont.
Without further ado, I think we're in like the 90s. I was just looking at like our catalog too as I was numbering these shows. Episode 95. Huh. Pretty exciting. I didn't realize we were in the 90s. I assumed 70s?
You know, I just stopped counting.
So there you go. Episode 95 today. Scary spooky month. Best time of the year. And we're playing Castlevania. Is it scary? Maybe? I don't know. We'll find out. But specifically, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It was developed by Konami. It sold 1.27 million. It was released March 5th, 1997. How long to beat this game? At 8.5 hours. Price at release was $49.99, and if you factored in inflation, that would be $78 today. eBay, you can $150 to $800. I have a copy literally in my hand right now. I can walk 2 steps, grab it, $150 in my hand. This could literally fund Podtendo for the next year. That's how much it costs to run the show here, apparently. And eShop price, you can get a copy for about $10, so not bad.
Yeah. And you know, if you subscribe to, I think it's Xbox Live and PlayStation Now Plus. I don't know if you get to keep the games on PlayStation Now Plus, but you definitely do on Xbox Gold. So I've had this game for many years. It's been sitting there just collecting dust on my electronic library, just waiting. But $150. God dang, I remember these things were dime a dozen.
Oh, I mean, we'll get into where we found our copy, but we found our copy in a discounted bin already. Like, it's stupid. Everything is just so much more expensive, except for some reason, Xbox 360s. So, random story, I have 2 Xbox 360s for sale. I can't give them away for $40. Nothing. PS3 of that vintage, $200. Like, son of a gun. You can play Castlevania Symphony of the Night, though, on the PS1, the Saturn, the Xbox 360, PSP, PS4, PS Vita, Android, and iOS. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yep. It's almost like they really like to re-release this game.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of one instant classics. We'll get into that, into our development details. But we're going to do things a little differently today. It's a 2-part. We're going to be looking at this game over 2 episodes. I don't know how long they're going to be. I don't know. But this one is going to be a very cut and dry. We're going to get right to the facts, and we're going to stop about the halfway point, and then we're going to get not our fluff category, because the second half of the game is a little bit faster. We're going to do our other things like our cultural significance and Wayback Machine. So if you're looking forward, or you're like, hey, you missed those sections, they're coming. They're just in 2 weeks. So bear with us, and we'll get through this. So, I mean, also, almost like a month ago, Nintendo Direct, they released their, they're like, oh, look at your Castlevania, Sorias of Dawns and stuff like that, Game Boy Advance. We're so with the times that a month later we drop the best Castlevania, Metroidvania genre. None of this Sorias of Dawns. Come on.
Wow. I just laughed because I was like, it seems like your Castlevania collection's missing there something, Nintendo. Just saying. I know everybody likes to say that Aria, whatever the heck it is the best, but is it?
Is it?
Is it?
I think we can have that conversation. All right. So development details of this fun game. In 1994, development began on Castlevania for the Sega 32X. Sega systems always confuse me too. I feel like there's like 10. I know the Genesis. That's about it. So strange. Known as Castlevania the Bloodletting. Not long after, they decided to change focus to the PlayStation. It was developed as something of a side story for the series, where you're able to break a lot of Castlevania's conventions and introduce new elements. I think I spelled that word wrong, but I read it right, so that's exciting. The changes came about because there was a dozen of Castlevania games in discount bins in Japan. It's ironic. They thought that the regular games were too short and wanted to create a game that could be enjoyed for a long period of time. They abandoned the traditional stage-by-stage progression and created an open castle. They used The Legend of Zelda as an inspiration because a lot of the castle is inaccessible to the players. But as the player gradually finds items, more and more the castle would open up to the players. They wanted to reward exploration while retaining the hack and slash of the classic series. Interesting. The leveling system was added because the earlier game was too difficult for the average player. The leveling system, combined with a variety of items, armors, weapons, and spells, allowed for a very deep and immersive experience. The game uses visuals, mainly sprites animated over scrolling backgrounds. The PlayStation had no hardware for scrolling, which led to the developers using the same method for displaying character sprites to display the backgrounds. The game contains opening and ending cinematics, which were created by another group at Konami. The development team was disappointed in the quality of the cinematics, which featured mostly flat, lacking texture. Neat.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how they went through. There's lots of detailed breakdowns of how all the stuff kind of got made, and I'm always so fascinated to know, learn about kind of what limitations were placed upon these developers and how they made things work. And the 2D, 3D background effect is just or not like background effect. Like the 3D is a little cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's funny how this game that they were like, we don't know what we're doing, so we're kind of just trying and making things work. That style of 3D and 2D is still you still see it today. Like if you download an RPG on your phone, guarantee it has some of these things going on for it. And that's crazy to see that this game from 97 is still influencing games nowadays. And it's just but these developers didn't know what they were doing, but that just shows how crazy talented and how much actually detailed and thoughts went into all these things. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Tyson, hold on, let me see here.
Oh, I did also bring up the Sega thing because it was driving me nuts.
Oh, me too.
Sega Master System,
yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah.
Then the Game Gear release, obviously.
But the Genesis can also be called the Mega Drive, because lots of times you hear about the Mega Drive games, which is the Japanese, so it's kind of like the Famicom. The Super Famicom and Super Nintendo are the same thing. The Genesis and Mega Drive are the same.
Yeah, and then there was the Sega CD, which was the CD add-on for the Genesis / Mega Drive.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're all still on the same page.
Yeah.
And then they did oh my God, there was all sorts of crazy things. There was a little Sega Pico and then the Sega Mega Jet. But the one we're looking for is Sega 32X.
Yes.
So it was an expansion, another expansion or add-on to the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive. So this was just my goodness, they really milked the heck out of the Mega Drive and Genesis. So whenever you hear Mega Drive and Genesis, just interchangeable.
Yes. Okay, done. Sega CD is an add-on, so it literally clips beside it, and then the
32X clicks on top of it.
Yeah. So you could have the Genesis with a CD player beside it with a weird adapter on top, and that's just one system. You would call it the Sega 32XC or something.
Yeah. And then they released the Sega Saturn.
Yep, perfect.
Which was their CD-based kind of next-gen-y game.
In line with PlayStation and 64.
Yes, exactly. And then they released the Nomad, which is the handheld Genesis.
Yeah.
And then they did the Dreamcast.
Which is in line with the PlayStation 2.
Exactly, and Xbox.
Huh. Okay. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I never knew that. I mean, it's kind of relevant because on the Sega Saturn, there was a copy of Symphony of the Night that was released that had extra areas. So.
And I just think for context, we should probably add that thing because, I mean, these are things that I've always kind of not known about. So I'm hoping that maybe our listeners can learn a little bit because it's super confusing when you aren't a big Sega person and you kind of get these Sega names just tossed at you. So like it's nice to know like, okay, when you hear Saturn, think PlayStation. Dreamcast, think PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
Kind of just keeps things like in your head, like, oh, when was that? Like it's kind of adds that reference.
Yeah. No,
So.
I agree. That's fair. The only other thing I was going to point was Tyson did find a video called Super Splash Wave, the making of Castlevania Symphony of the Night on YouTube. If you want to dive more into the visuals of just how this game was created and some of the music, right? Those are definitely better resources to use. I don't, and we actually discussed this when we were together a couple weeks ago. Like, that's not in my wheelhouse, those things. Like, if that's fair, like, I don't really care about how the art style. I'm not an artist, right? Like, I don't care about the sound design. I'm not a musician. What I care more about is like the lore of games, right? So once the game's in my lap, I like to dive in and like, what's this painting about, right? Those things fascinate me a little bit more, and I kind of find that's where I lean in my breakdowns of games, right? That's where I'm coming from. So I do apologize for anyone ever listening that's like, you guys never ever talk about music or art style. It's just not something I care about.
It's very niche. Like, I mean, and I think...
and it's great.
It's actually kind of interesting because you kind of are more in line with the Miyamoto kind of philosophy of games, where you're like, I like big picture and I like it has to work and it has to be like interesting and stuff. And like, so he creates these really neat worlds and makes sure that the gameplay is fun. But he probably doesn't spend countless hours looking into how the programming and engineering of a video game is. Like, that guy does a great breakdown of like how a video game is made, and even sometimes like some of the art style, like character design and stuff. He kind of goes into like really the technical aspect, but sometimes it's nice to just focus on just everything besides the technical side.
Oh, and because, like I said, there is kind of that background in the art and the music, and if you're interested in those things, that's the resource. Super Splash Wave, YouTube, check them out. It works better on a visual media too, when you kind of hear the music and you can see the visuals on screen, whereas I think podcasting doesn't work great for those things. But I just would throw that out as a disclaimer. Tyson shared that excellent resource, thought I'd kind of share all with you.
Absolutely. It's a good time.
Yeah, sweet. All right, so on to the controls of this fun game. So you move around in the 2D space with the D-pad. You can use a variety of weapons, shields, or items to any of the 2 action buttons. So you can equip yourself with armor, headwear, a cape, and 2 accessories. I wrote 3, but I'm pretty sure it's 2. You can get multiple spells and relics that can be equipped to your character. The form of wolf, bat, and mist. The relics can also help you explore the castle, from unlocking doors to jumping to not dying in water. Relics have it all. Oh, I was supposed to like, from unlocking doors to jumping spaces to not dying in water. Relics have it all. All right. I should have said use your weird voice. You also have an arsenal of spells that you can unlock for a price, or you can look up the combos online and save yourself some hard-earned cash. There are also 2 other playable characters in this, but we don't get to them till next episode.
Yeah, very cool. The controls of this game are so tight, and there's like hidden moves that, let's say, like if you know what you're doing, you kind of can break the game, and it feels really like a fighting game at some points because you can just do crazy stuff. You can zip all around, and you're like I was trying to experiment a lot more with the actual controls because I don't know, I kind of play things kind of straightforwardly a lot of the time. So I was like, how much can I abuse all the hidden maneuvers? And it's funny, you can abuse them a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that this game is easily broken, but that's half the fun, is deciding how do you want to break it.
100%. You could definitely play it vanilla, have a great experience, and then you can come back to it. And the replayability is those broken maneuvers, right? So like there are some combos. I don't know if we get into them this way, of just equipment that you can put on your guy, and you become just unstoppable, right? Like it just chases the whole game, and you're like, interesting, yeah, cool. But you can also, and like that's just, I think again, it's replayability, right? It's kind of like playing a game with cheat codes. Cheat codes in theory should be there because you want to replay a game. Whereas nowadays they don't do cheat codes because they're like, oh, you don't want to be a noob gamer. But then I'm only going to play the game once, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like your playthrough plus, as it were, where it's like, oh, you got all the crazy goofy things.
And it's earned, I mean, right? It's a skill-based
I think
new game
the
plus.
First time you play through like Symphony, we have a certain thing coming up that we should probably get into before I go off on a little tangent here.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's it for the controls of this game. On to our first memory section, where we talk about our first experiences with these games. Sometimes it's playing them on the podcast first time. Sometimes, though, these games have been in our lives since, like, I don't know, 97, maybe even 98. I couldn't tell you exactly when we got it. 98, yeah, probably wasn't 98. 99, I think we got our PlayStation. It was probably closer to 99, 2000 when this game fell into our lives. So that's the time frame. We got it at a bargain shop, the bargain shop, in small town B. I think I maybe played it for like 20 minutes, and I was like, nah, this isn't important, and went about my life. Later at a sleepover, I brought up the game, and some of my friends deep dove into this classic. We would share kind of memory cards and take turns exploring the castle before meeting on the playground the following day to share our experiences. I then once used a Game Shark to beat the game and would be poison mist and just sit and kill everything. What a sad existence I lived as a small child. So that's my first memories of this game. Tyson, what are your first memories of this game?
I remember looking at this game in Canadian Tire when it was behind the glass next to the Final Fantasy like 7 and 8, I think it was, and that's where I saw 9 for the first time. And this game like just kind of stood out to me because visually it's like the artwork is kind of like something that I've never seen before. It's very anime-esque, so I'm like a young kid, very impressionable. I'm like, man, this is incredible. I want to like play this game. Then I remember us getting it, and I think we got the greatest hits, so must have been like 2099 or something. But I remember playing through it and being like hearing the music and like killing the wolves with like Alucard for the first time and just being like, this is the coolest game in the world. There's wolves and I have a sword and my guy is a vampire. Like, this game, nothing could get better. And then you met Death and he took all your stuff. Man, it was a lot for a kid. I remember like being like having some difficulty. And I can kind of see where I kind of bumped up against a wall, but it was one of those games where I just like, I remember playing it and being like obsessed with it and just being like, it kind of like opened my eyes to the whole like Gothic architecture and like medieval times, and kind of like, I don't know if it got my interest in that, because I remember being in middle school just like loving the medieval ages. So I'm like, I feel like Castlevania might have influenced that, so I feel like I owe a lot of that love and like fantasy love to like Symphony of the Night, oddly enough. But as I was saying kind of earlier, when you kind of first play a game, you just dive in, you play it, you play through it as like and you're gonna make mistakes. So like you kind of like are just, that's your vanilla experience. You've done it, and now going back after all these times, it's nice to have the cheat codes and all the add-ons and the hidden moves and knowing how to break this game super fast and rush your way through it. But that first time you're playing through it, it's kind of like, it's a magical experience that you kind of can't recapture. It's just like your eyes get opened, you see this whole new world for like what it is, and you just can't wait to find every little hidden thing around every corner. And it's like, oh, you unlocked a wolf? Where did you find the wolf? I need to be the wolf. And it's like you were cheered on the playground, and it was just like such a unique experience, like, because you weren't immediately rushing to a fax or a guide. You were like, how can I figure this out? And your little brain would just like rack itself all night obsessing about this game. And you're like, that's how like fandoms were created. Because like,
oh yeah,
we'd spend our whole day just thinking about like, how the heck do I get the mist?
Well, and I do wonder,
or how do I stay the mist? I've seen people stay the mist. How do I stay the mist?
And that's one of those gaming experiences like you just don't get nowadays, because yeah, there's a guy on YouTube playing the game. There are facts online that are at the disposable, like at your fingertips. Where back in the day, you didn't have those things, and you did have to like talk to friends and collaborate, right, and go through a game. It's a relic of a past age for sure, as Tyson's discussing. So there you go. Let's dive into the game, and I think it's interesting. I'm curious to talk, like, let's talk from a perspective of being like young children. We'll roleplay as young boys playing this game. How about? And we'll kind of talk about where the game diverges and some of the difficulties that you might have playing through this experience. So keep that in mind as we go through. But anyway, on to the story of this fine game. Remember when I used to have like sound effects and it was like I did a funny voice and stuff, and now I just read it out normally because I'm lazy?
You've put your effort to other places.
What?
You don't have to.
I write the same notes. I made a stupid voice. I basically just made it easier on myself. So.
It's true. Sure, you could just do a funny voice and read it, but then you have to take it twice. I don't know.
I mean, I could just play like a funny. Work. I could play a funny.
For anyone who doesn't know, Mick writes all the notes and I just show up.
It's true. Yeah.
So
It's true. Like, I could just play a stupid song on iTunes as we do this. Like, what do we want to do? Something, Castlevania. What if I just search that? Do you think there's any songs? I'm going to kill this flat. Oh, yeah, here we go. Look. Here, let's play. Here we go. The game begins. We're playing the events of Rondo of Blood. You are Richter Belmont and fight Dracula. After some rich vocal performances, you defeat the Dark Lord. However, we soon learn that 4 years later, Richter Belmont disappears and Castlevania reappears. It's up to Dracula's son, Alucard, to investigate.
see, well done.
There you go. See, look, I put in some actual effort. Look at that. Let's applaud mediocrity. Good job. Whatever.
Well done. Yeah, the voice acting. Oof.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to be cheesy. Come on, it's supposed to be cheesy.
It's a thing. It's a thing for sure. So we move on to the level notes with our Let's Play section. We're going to recount. I think that's kind of it for the podcast. We're basically just going to get through the first half of the game. I got a... Are you buying it? And then we're done. So, I mean, it's a lot of notes to get through, and I went through a lot of details. Yeah, so the prologue. Let's talk about the prologue. So you play as a powerful vampire hunter, Richter Belmont. You have to defeat Dracula. You can't lose, since if your life bar drains, Maria, who's a young girl, will show up and give you her power. So it's a very solid opening to this game. It's a great callback to previous titles. So as a fan of the series, are rewarded, and new players feel like they're being shown some epic ending to a previous title before. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, it kind of left you wondering, like, what happened in that previous adventure? If only there was a way of spending money and finding out.
In North America, so it was actually the ending of Rondo of Blood, Dracula X.
Yep.
And it was actually impossible because I don't think it had a North American release. So we would have to wait till the PSP, I believe, was probably the release.
Yep, still made you wonder.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, it was great for the imagination. Cool little callback. But yeah, and this is, if you ever seen any of the cheesy Dracula, like, what is a man? A tiny little pile of ashes or something.
Secrets.
Yeah, secrets. And then he's like, how about you? And there's a glass breaking. That's from this game. It's adorable.
Your words are as empty as your soul.
That might be our outro to this episode. So if you're interested, stay tuned to the end, and I will play them.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and there's Maria, who's like
How
a
about
12-year-old girl who's got a deep voice like this and might have been smoking for the last 5 years. And you're like,
Richter.
Maria, it's like, you sound, want to lend me some cigarettes or something, buddy? Because you might want to quit.
What are you? Anyway, so that's done. So now we're like, oh no, we get our little title crawl, and it's 4 years later, and Alucard awakens from deep slumber. So Alucard storms through a dark forest, jumps over a drawbridge, and finds himself facing a hallway of evil monsters. Luckily, you were equipped with some of the best armor in the game. After a few screens, though, you run into death. He steals all your equipment and leaves you feeling helpless.
Yeah. You get to run around and just sucker punch people after this. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. One
thing I guess we probably should have talked about, like you were talking before we started recording. What happens? So there's different ways of cheesing the beginning of this game. So if you do die and your life bar gets drained, you get infinite power and you become invincible basically to defeat Dracula. But it does affect your stats later on in the game, right?
Yeah, there's a whole chart about this. Like, if you beat Dracula without taking damage, if you beat Dracula and have, like, half your health, if you don't have Maria's help, if you use up all your hearts, if you go into the hidden room, if you don't use the sub-weapon, like, there's tons. Yeah. But, like, literally the best one is just beat Dracula in less than a minute.
So get some hearts, use your item crash.
Yeah, you can also, there's a hidden move, I think, if you use, not soul steal, but there's literally a move you can use where it's just like, it's like quarter circle forward or then back or something, then X. I forget what it is. Like, it's this little move, and then you're like, half his health is just gone.
Yeah.
And then you can just use your sub weapon, and then he just goes into his like boss form, and you just use your sub weapon again, and he dies. Yeah. Like, that was like 5 seconds. It's so quick. Like, there's videos of people doing it online, so you can just try to mimic them.
Don't ask your friends on the playground, because they'll be like, what? Why are you on the playground? You're in your you're 17. That's weird. Go online. That's probably the safer way to do it. It does affect your character build of Alucard. So now that we're Alucard running through this game, we're just crushing it, killing it. I'm gonna out myself as a bit of a, I don't know, noob gamer here. I usually try and level up to like level 5 just because it's really simple. Killing some of the wolf enemies that get you anywhere from like 6 to 2 experience. So I mean, it takes, I don't know, 10 minutes. You be level 5, which makes the next areas a little bit more manageable, especially since they kind of strip you of all your equipment and stick in your left in this castle, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the wolves and everything that you're fighting right now gives you pretty decent experience. So you can just quickly pop in and out of a room and just like one shot things. I think I leveled up to level 3. It's just a weird thing that I do. Just make sure myself like grind this out real quick. Make sure give myself an extra level. And
I think the mermen actually give you a lot more. So if there's one part where you can go underwater and there's mermen. If you just sit on the bridge, they end up giving you, I think, the most experience. Because I inadvertently was kind of moving my way back after leveling up and got to level 6 because the mermen give such good experience. And there's just so many of them, and they respawn infinitely, right? You don't have to move screens. So there's some easy tips from a beginner. So what an amazing opening to this game. You feel the power of Alucard. You're no longer just a guy with a whip. This time we are a vampire. Modern games should take cues from this debuffing trope. I'm looking at you, God of War. So there you go. So after saving, we can make our way into a long hallway. There are tons of axe armor, skeletons, and alchemy flasks that hold secret treasures. If you search hard enough, you should be able to find a sword, armor, and a cape. There's a boss in this area, Slogra and Gabon. You have to fight a flying gargoyle and a bird guy. Once you defeat the first one, the other one goes into like rage mode.
Yeah. I think I had the knife and I just threw knives at him until the one dude died, and then I just killed the dude or the one guy in the ground. Pretty easy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I usually try and get the axe for this boss fight because the flying Gabon guy or whatever, you have to throw axes at him. I find that's a little bit better, as well as use the shield. When you get fireballs shot at you, it blocks them, so that's pretty exciting. It's a very linear path up to this point, teaches you some of the basic mechanics, and rewards exploration. So then we're on to the Marble Gallery. After defeating the bosses, you were given your first branching path. If you take the down path, it will take you back to the kind of the first area. You have to pass through some tough enemies, but I do think you get rewarded with some type of relic. I don't know what it does, but either gives you hearts or it shows enemy names or something like that. And if you take the upper path, you find yourself in the clock tower. You get some great dialogue with the now grown-up Maria, and she informs you that she's looking for a missing Richter Belmont.
What do you hear?
Yeah, there you go. It's a clock. This is a clock, Maria. It tells time.
Like, who wrote this sentence? Oh, right. It's medieval ages. You're not educated.
Well, that's how you'd say it, right? Like, what do you hear? What are you doing here, right? Yeah, silly. I do enjoy replaying the first area and finding all the spots that I just can't reach, and I'm like, if I only jumped a little bit higher, I could get that, or if only I could get through this door. And then you kind of have to make mental notes along the way. You can score some greater gear during your second trip through the castle if you ever got the ability to jump higher. Wink.
Mm-hmm. We actually had a couple abilities to jump higher.
Yeah. So now, once you get to the end of the Marble Gallery, you find yourself at the outer wall, which is the far end of the castle. So you've actually moved in a linear path, essentially, across the castle, which is kind of neat. Shows you the breadth and just how big this place is going to be. You can head down, find some treasures, head up, fight yourself before turning an elevator on and activating a teleporter. The boss is the doppelganger. He's you. He's kind of tricky. Luckily, there's a save point right beforehand, so if you die, it's one of those guys might take you out because
you can cheese him. He is weak to the stopwatch.
Oh.
So if you just stopwatch him and then you just punch him in the face a bunch, and he just dies.
All right. And then other pro tip is you can find some diamond knuckles that put out 28 damage really early on. There is a sword guardian guy, and if you throw some holy waters on him, he dies. You sneak into a room, you then punch out this wall, and you have to press down for like 20 seconds, and this little elevator appears, which takes you to this room that should only be accessible by the mist later on in the game. I usually do that, and then I have a lot of damage output, so...
Yep. Yeah. That's the best weapon so far.
For a while.
I was gonna say,
like maybe the shield rod, right? So that's like that far into the game. So when you hear the shield rod, you're like, oh wow, that's crazy. And I do like that you can activate the elevator, again rewarding the curious players with interactive level design. But nothing to do. Teleporter takes us back to the beginning. We've already been through everything. We haven't got any upgrades. What do we do? Well, I guess we can become a wolf, but that doesn't really get us anywhere. We can go to the long library. You have to make your way through a library. Find several areas you can't just yet before talking to an old librarian and buying the Jewel of Open, which gives you access to new areas. I think it's kind of neat that they have a shop in this game. I would recommend a couple library cards, and you can travel back here when you would like. And this is one of those parts where essentially you can explore everything, and if for some reason you do not buy the Jewel of Open, it doesn't tell you to buy it. There's no way for you to know. There's no Navi jumping out and saying like, hey, you should buy something that opens doors. It's just something you kind of have to experience and try. I like that this game has that kind of that level design. You have to kind of think outside the box, and you have to be curious, right, to advance. I like that they kind of reward that curiosity. But with that, it gives you access to 2 areas.
Yeah. And he has a funny laugh. So
thank you.
I was hoping someone's gonna do it.
Yeah. We actually don't need sound clips from this game. Me and Tyson are just gonna provide you with all the fun sound clips from this game.
We got you covered.
Thank you.
I would do then there's always the screams, but we'll do that in post.
Yeah.
He's very interesting because so later on in the game, I think you can get moon boots. And you can jump up into him, and he eventually drops something. Forget what the heck he drops. But I know you can jump into him, and you can get a weapon or something.
And sometimes you play this whole game without getting moon boots, and you're like, that's...
Oof.
Yeah.
That really makes the inverted castle...
Yes.
I mean, there's no inverted castle.
Oh, you spoiled it. What the hell?
Everybody knows. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, kids.
Yeah. You've seen the meme. There's no memes. But now we have the Jewel of Open. We can go to 2 doors. The guide, for some reason that I copied, said underground caverns. Don't go to the underground caverns. Take my advice. Don't go to the underground caverns. But we're going to go to the underground caverns. So I copied a guide. Said that go here first. And during my playthrough, I think I also went here first. Son of a gun, I'm dumb. Back to the marble gallery. You find a magically sealed door. You press a switch and it unlocks an underground path. You have to fall down a large hole, find a snake lake, fight a snake lady, that's what it is, the Cilia, and explore a wet area. If you travel to the left, you can get to a place where you find an Orman medallion, which lets you travel to the right in a hidden passage, and you get the mermaid metal, so you don't get hurt by water. I would recommend maybe not heading here first. Get the double jump or bat form first. Otherwise, you just have more exploring to do.
Yeah. And it's until you can get the holy snorkel.
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
what it is.
really...
It's not mermaid metal. It's the holy symbol, which helps you breathe underwater. It's literally just a snorkel.
It's a snorkel.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's and the image. It's a snorkel.
Yeah.
It's literally just a snorkel. It's beautiful. The guys who made this game, or the guys and gals that made this game, just
genius.
Well done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah. No, it's good. So, yeah, really nothing there. Interesting boss. You don't really get sweet enemies.
No, but what you should do is you should probably just go to the chapel, right?
Hey, so that area where we fought was it Gabon and Slaga or whatever? We head that way. If you head to the left, you'll find back to the alchemy lab. You find a path blocked by a magically sealed door. Fight up some stairs, avoid a giant sword, and you'll find some branching paths this way. Since there's only one save room at the start of this area, you may be over your head. The boss here is a Hippogriff. I think he's probably the toughest enemy in the game. He's at the end of this castle little turret section you have to go down, this really long hallway. It's a bit of a grime. If you don't have healing items, you might get taken out by him, right? I know myself, I think I lost to him at least once, maybe twice. You have to climb up these stairs and it towers, and then you come to the difficult bird. It's good, It's challenging, but the game kind of gets easier after this, so it's nice that the game has some level of challenge.
Yeah, so I went straight after getting the seal or the relic of unlocking to here, and I kind of think that maybe now I know why. I had a bit of a hard time, and they say you should go to the underground caverns, because if you go to the underground caverns, you get a lot more experience, and the enemies aren't as difficult. So you can kind of grind yourself up going to the Royal Cavern. So you kind of explore and grab a few things only to have to go back. But it gives you the experience to kind of get through the Royal Chapel. Because I just went straight to the Royal Chapel and I had to be like walk on eggshells and like run back to the save room to get myself full health and I actually had to use healing items. I was like, what is happening right now?
Well, so one of the things you can collect in this game is you collect little heart power. So you get extra health, so it's like extra 5 or 10 or something like that. Magic upgrades or heart upgrades as you kind of play through. So there is probably a couple in the underground caverns. Like there's probably 5 to 6, so it's an extra 30 health, which could be the difference of life or death, especially in the later parts of the game, right? So yeah, maybe that's why they say to do that, to get the extra experience and those little health containers, right? So
yeah, I think that's got to be it.
All right. So now we made ourselves so we're into the castle keep. So if you defeat the Hippogriff, very difficult part of the game, we're onto the castle keep. This is the final area of the game. We did it. This was short. There are some axe knights, save rooms, a teleporter, and the final boss. But you can't quite get there yet because the walkway that Richter went up is kind of destroyed. But you can find double jump. Keep exploring. So I think this job kind of does this game does an amazing job of leading you here. Creates a very difficult path for you to follow, which is very rewarding. And now that you're equipped with the double jump, you can kind of go back to the library, to the opening areas, and you can kind of explore all these other little paths, right? It just kind of keeps the game kind of open, and I really think that's neat. So again, if you're little kids playing this, you can get to the outer wall, to the library. You should be able to do that no problem. But it's doing those other things like the Jewel of Open. Did you buy that? Which of the doors do you choose to use, right? And like, how do you explore those areas? It just, I don't know. I think this opening part of this game is done expertly, and that's why it kind of stands out above all else still to this day, right? So
yeah, I also think that it does, like, the map layout is genius. Because you kind of are forced to explore certain areas, but you are always seeing more things that I need something to get there, or I can't get there, or I can't get there, or I can't get there. And so the curious mind and the person that wants to explore will be like, okay, well, I want to go back there when I have more experience. If you want to, you can kind of rush your way through this. You can kind of skip past those things, but it almost like hinders you. And it's like, they're so blatantly obvious. There's literally ledges with things sitting on it just taunting you. If you're like, just break me, want to know what's inside me, it's like I guarantee it's something awesome. So you're constantly just like kind of having to like, okay, now when I go back or when I get something else, and now that I got double jumped, like there's so many spots that I need to run back, so I almost need to run back to the start of the game and then start exploring. So it rewards you, but it also, like, as you're exploring, you're now discovering even more areas. So it's like it makes you go even deeper. It's like a little spiraling little rabbit hole. It's amazing.
Oh, 100%. Some of the areas. So the one thing you should do if you're stuck at this point, you're like, hey, I got double jump. Now what? I want to explore everything. Go to the library. There's an upper path you can reach, and you become the bat. Hooray. All right. So there you go. Spoilers. Now, really, we can kind of go almost anywhere. The guide recommended. I just followed, again, not how I played through. I just kind of copied out the sections. We go to All Rocks Quarters. So the guide recommends heading to the clock tower. You become a bat, and you can kind of head right. I think if you go up, you find the moon boots, which gives you a special like up jump. So you press down, up, jump, and you just fly up in perpetuity. It's awesome. I missed it. Hate my life.
Oh man, it's so nice because you just like fly up like 40, 50 feet, and you're just like, oh, I'm not quite there yet. Let me just do that again. Okay, there I am. I'm at the top of this thing, and now I'll turn into the bat. It's so fast.
Yeah, I know. I didn't have it. Not bitter.
Not better at all.
Not bitter. So if you head to the clock tower, this every like minute or something, every other minute, this path on the left opens up. You kind of jump up there, use the bat. Then you're kind of in a big section with a big sword. If you head kind of up and to the right, you're going to find a teleporter room, up a long corridor, bat, moon boots. And then you're in kind of like a big open air section in the middle part of the castle. I think there's a save room, maybe one or two little like items to find. But the main thing we're looking for is the boss here, All Rocks. According to the guide, he's at level 25 and harder than other bosses you could fight. So I don't know why they would recommend going to him first. He's another vampire and apparently is the second in command to Dracula's army, or the heir to his throne. After defeating him, you will get the Echo of the Bat, which is important. Cool.
He is also a gentleman and invites you to have a drink with him.
Yep.
You can sit there and then you fight him anyways. But still, it's very cool that he's like, hey.
Oh, he's like, hey, man, I work with your dad. He's my friend from work. And you're like, oh, screw you, man. I hate my dad.
Yes. I'm going to wreck your table. And he's like, bro, I don't come to your house and wreck your stuff.
Why are you so angsty? Why are you such an angsty young man, Mr. Alucard?
Yeah.
I don't know.
For someone who's like hundreds of years old, you're sure immature, man. I don't go to people's houses and start wrecking things.
Very immature, very immature. And then we're kind of like, because we're still in this area, you can go back to that big that one room where we have to go right, and there's a big sword. If you head kind of down and to the left, we get to the Colosseum. So back to the clock tower and head left. You will find yourself in the Colosseum. There are rooms that just jam-packed with tough enemies, great treasures, and several save locations. I would definitely make note of finding a save location early on, because there's chances you're going to get wrecked depending what kind of equipment you have. Now, this whole section is kind of based on, I don't know what, there's like 2 long screens, and it drops down 2 to 3 screens, and in the middle there is essentially the middle of the Colosseum, or the Colosseum itself, and you get to find a boss. So Richter Belmont appears and tells you he is lord of this castle. And you're like, a Belmont? Lord of Castlevania? That doesn't seem right. He sends out a Minotaur and Wolfman after you. At the same time, afterwards, Maria shows up and ponders this latest discovery.
Yes, plot thickens.
Yeah. So we got some plots. So we were here looking for someone. And Maria's like, oh, we're looking for Richter. Now Richter's like, oh, I'm here. And I'm the lord of this castle. Kind of a neat little mystery.
Yeah, really kind of makes you start to like, wait, didn't I play that guy? Mm-hmm. Wasn't he that guy?
I guess we should say too, as soon as you become the bat, you can use the bat to get up over that little broken part, and you can just go fight the main bad guy, who is Richter Belmont, who's sitting in Dracula's throne. So you could actually just have the game over. We're going to keep going because we think there's more to this mystery than meets the eye.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to give somebody their not fair due without doing my due diligence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this area alone, with the Royal Chapel, I think are the most kind of Castlevania-like in terms of difficulty. I think we have to also get kind of the power of mist here after defeating the Minotaur and the Wolfman, which may get... Oh, I see. Yeah, so, and that kind of gets you to a couple other areas. I don't know exactly what the mist form gets you. There's something it unlocks. I'm not positive what.
The metal breaker, spike breaker.
Spike breaker. Oh, yeah, that's right. You needed to get the spike breaker armor. All right.
Yeah.
Keys.
So,
keys, everything is a key. I just don't know what the keys work on sometimes.
Yep. Well, yeah, there's, and everything in this game unlocks something usually, so.
Yeah. Cool. Any other parts for the Colosseum? I think you get the shield rods. So remember I mentioned the shield, the diamond knucklers or whatever they were kind of 10 minutes ago. We got the shield rods, so we now have a better weapon. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it took us that long. We literally could fought the end boss without getting this one.
A better weapon. So again, maybe recommend doing that. There's also a weird sequence when you get to the outer wall. You have to go down to the bottom, and there's this observation deck. And if you look at it, you see like a oarman out on a lake. If you don't do that, the oarman will never appear in the underground, which means you never get the Mermaid Statue, which then allows you to kind of go back to the other side, which calls the oarman, which gives you the underwater abilities. So you may not be able to breathe underwater if you don't look at them through the telescope. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Not that it's like critical. Like you could do the whole game without it,
but it's like one of those like little things where it kind of makes you think about having to interact with the environment, and then maybe if you're interested, there's a what's the confessional?
Yeah.
You can sit on either side, and either one or two people show up, either a crying woman or a woman, like a laughing woman, or like an evil psychotic woman, or like a good priest and evil priest kind of thing.
I think the good priest, like they'll try and stab you or like drop items, and it's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So it just like makes you think that like, there is more going on in this game, and you can actually interact with it more than just swinging a sword.
Well,
so.
and it gives you more stuff to explore. So if you don't do that, you don't, again, we don't get the health upgrades, so that maybe the Royal Chapel's impassable, right? Like, you need to be really skilled, and you have to be like really precise in all your movements. Or you could go have fun and explore these areas and find these unlockables and stuff like that, right? And grow levels, make the game a little bit easier. So now, essentially everything upstairs is done. Now we can head back to the underground that we've kind of also. So now we're back in the underground in the abandoned mines. On top of the waterfall, you can activate a barrel-throwing skeleton, which appears in another area, and it says something appeared by the bridge. If you kind of trick him and like drag him over to the bridge, he'll throw this barrel, it'll destroy it, which sends you into a deeper path. You get to fight the boss Cerberus, who's a guardian of the underworld, so I wonder where we're headed. And if you stand on the platform and spend holy waters, this three-headed dog is super easy.
Yeah, holy water becomes your best friend at this point, because the stopwatch stops working with a lot of the mini bosses, so time to ditch it.
I pretty much just, as soon as I get holy water, I just spam it the whole game. I kind of like just throwing it on a guy, letting it burn, and like doing a couple hits. You can now continue to move through this very tough area and head deeper. So you also find just even the basic enemies. There's some witches that take, 5 or 6 hits to kill with your normal weapons, and you're like, holy smokes, this is getting tough. The way I play this game, here's my pro tip, is the enemies get much more difficult. In the teleporter hallway, so there's this little branching path, these little gremlin guys. On the right, there's a teleporter. On the left, you find the gargoyle card. If you equip it and head up to right beside where we fought Cerberus, he activates a switch. And at the end of this path, there's a ring of Aries, which gives you 60-ish attack, but 0 defense. So you're like killing these guys in 1 or 2 hits. Most enemies in this game are standing up to you, but if you take like 5 or 6 hits, you're dead. And outside of the walking armor, which is a armor that gains kind of defense as you explore more of the map. You can get a little bit of defense with it, or there's an item called the God's Garb that we'll get into in the next kind of version that kind of gives you like a little bit of defense. But I like it. It kind of increases the difficulty. It like makes it easier and harder at the same time, right? So I'm more of an offense and defense person after this point of the game.
Yeah. And I mean, I usually keep the the cross, so you can do the swirling thing around you.
Yeah.
And then it's essentially like, that's better defense than anything else. So you drop that, and then you just run around and wreck people. So
nice. Okay. So now we're headed down into the underworld. So we end up in the Catacombs, which is where people bury their dead. Fun fact. Look all the pro tips you're getting about Catacombs. Now we're at the bottom of the castle and close to hell. To the right is the path that the Echo the Bat reveals, which is a safe route. So there's a little hallway with spikes. Echo the Bat will kind of show where to go. And you get the Spike Breaker armor. To the left, there are some tough enemies and some great loot. And a boss! It's called Grand Falloon. He's a bunch of dead bodies in a giant ball. Sounds terrifying. It literally is as terrifying as it sounds, so...
It's a fun name, though. Yeah. Grand Falloon.
Yeah, or Legion. I think is also what he's called. So he's kind of a being that, like from the Bible, that causes people to like be brainwashed, becomes this army. So Grand Falloon.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think with the Echo of Bats, you get the Spike Breaker armor, and then you need the Spike Breaker armor plus the mist to get one of the like the rings or something that we're going to talk about in the.
Yeah, maybe you're right, but I might be wrong. Like, you might actually not need I'm just trying to think, because I know you use the mist underneath in the library to get those unlocks.
But it's like Fire of the Bat or something. I think you're right in the sequence. So you need it. We'll get to it in like the next section, right? So
yeah. But I just want to make one quick point. So apparently, the Grand Falloon, that was one of the first bosses that they created when they were making this game, because they wanted to kind of be like, this was a show test of how the system would work. And it's like, because it's so complicated, have all these moving pieces, and to have the processor actually process these things in real time is such a crazy feat, to have like megabytes be basically processed and have like what we're seeing on our phones with really modern processors. It's like, it's crazy to think of what they crammed out. And I was like, And that was one of the first things that they did was this giant ball of massive people.
Cool. Well, and as you attack it, bodies fall off, and then they start walking towards you, so you have to take care of them too. And then as you do enough damage, like it loses parts of its shell, and there's this weird tentacle eyeball that shoots lasers at you, right? So it's a pretty complicated boss, and like kind of neat.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. So I think this area is a great challenge, has many treasures to discover, and on your first playthrough, it might take you like 2 or 3 times to kind of visit and just explore every little area. Like you might come back here a couple times. If you kind of know what you're doing in theory, you should be able to clear it out at once. And that's it. We've now literally explored the entire castle. We've got 2 sections left. And then we're done. So, at least for this episode. I wonder what's going to happen next episode. I mean, if you're listening to Tyson, you know. But there you go. So, back to the clock tower. Before heading back, though, we have to head to the top of the giant pit. So, the one that we fall down before we get to the underground, like a couple sections ago. You find a succubus in a weird, like, save room that's, like, purple. You go in and she sends you to a dream state. You fight her after she pretends to be your mother. And you're like, wow, you're really strong. Oh, I get it. You're Dracula's kid. I shouldn't have fought you. I'm sorry. You get a silver ring, which reads, where, ... clock, ... Then you can head to the Royal Chapel. In one of the towers, you will find some spikes that will only be broken if you have the spike breaker armor. In that hallway, you have to use the mist to fly through some grates, and then maybe also a door. So it's a couple there. You need the Jewel of Open, you need the Mist Form, and the Spike Breaker armor to get to the end of this. At the end of the hallway, though, you find Maria, and she gives you a golden ring, which reads ... in ... tower. And then if you wear both of them, you would read where in clock tower. Whamp, whamp. So if you wear them in the clock tower, it reveals an underground path where Maria gives us some sunglasses. Neat.
Stylish.
Neat. In the Saturn version of the game, you actually have to defeat Maria in combat so you can prove that you're strong enough to hang with Richter.
Well, goodness gracious, how did that girl get into that room? She was, and the architecture of that hallway that goes to nowhere. Come on.
Yeah.
Who built this? What madman built this?
Well, yeah. Like,
where's your flying buttresses? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's true. It does just kind of like hang out in the middle of nowhere.
It's literally a hallway that's like goes out for like 100 or 200 meters, just straight out of a castle, just sitting there. Yeah. Nothing underneath of it. You can actually see that there's nothing underneath of it, and then she's just hanging out in that hallway. Spikes are still there. Like, how did she get there?
Well, I mean, I think the idea is Castlevania is like a creature of chaos. So the castle is a creature itself, so it's kind of, it doesn't have to have traditional architecture, right? Like it can grow and change and have weird off angles and stuff like that, right? So
oh yes, and there's definitely a lot more going on with this castle than meets the eye.
All right, so there you go. So that's it. We're down to our last section, the master of the castle. So now equipped with our cool shades, I even said that, or our cool sunglasses, we can head back to the castle keep. You can take the same path from the prologue. It's like poetry. It rhymes. You see what it rhymes. You enter Dracula's throne room and encounter Richter Belmont. The glasses show an orb that's kind of controlling Richter across the top of the screen. So if you avoid attacking him and focus your attacks on the orb, you defeat it. And the Dark Priest Shaft appears, revealing that his plan was to use Richter to resurrect Dracula, potentially destroying his weakness to the Belmont clan. And he reveals his hiding place. Another Castlevania in the sky. Without hesitation, Alucard leaves a weakened Richter and Maria and takes a teleporter to the upside down castle. There was a bunch of exclamation marks. I don't know, how do you say castle with exclamation mark? I said it right. Castle. All right.
You got it.
Great.
It's, man, such a cool little twist that he's being controlled by this other guy, and you need to go through this whole sequence to unlock like an accessory just so that like you can see what you're actually trying to do. You know, like, so cool. I really wish more video games have done this. Like, this is such a neat twist to a game where, like, if you did know what you're doing, you could just accidentally have just killed Richter and game over. Yeah. Hey, you got the bad ending.
Well, but you'd look and you'd say, like, it said like 40% complete, and you're like, where's the other 60% of this game? Like, what am I missing? Yeah. Right.
Oh, total. And I swear we did that as kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where we beat Richter and we're like, oh, game over.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but wait, no. I only have like 20%. How do I only have 20%? Well, I didn't explore all those little passageways. Well, let's see if I explore all those passageways. Mm-hmm. Then you run around and you're like, oh, I'm still only at 30%. Oh, but now I just got this and I got this and I got that.
And you're likely to succumb to the succubus. And if you're looking at throw your items one point, you're like silver ring, and it's like wear blank blank clock blank blank. You're like, that's weird. I wonder how I'm supposed to wear this somewhere, right? Like, what a great first hint. Wear. So you equip it, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, maybe I need something else, right?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
It's done masterfully. Like, they set up this first half of this game, yeah, like Tyson said, just to be, without question, you could beat it, walk away, and be like, oh, I beat this game. What other games do that? Like, the halfway point looks like it's the true ending, and unless you kind of think about it, that's when, like, it becomes a greater awesome. It's amazing, right?
Oh yeah, it's like there. I cannot think of another game example, RPG, anything that has this random twist that it's like, oh, by the way, if you didn't actually like really pay attention and you were just kind of like clicking through this and just fighting things, you may not even realize that you just only explored like just a fraction of this game, and there's so much more story going on and so much more world, and then it kind of adds like. It adds character depth to Richter, because it's like, oh wait, he's actually the victim here.
Yeah.
That like, so it's, then you got to figure who the heck is Shaft. So it's like it's so neat, and I like that Alucard's like, nah, my dad's up to no good. I gotta go solve this, and you're like, props.
100%. And like, we'll get into this. So I mean, what they call this series is Metroidvania. So Super Metroid, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, and just based on the combat and the way you explore, and there's a map system, they clump these together as Metroidvania. So you've heard that title before. Modern games just use the heck out of it, whether it's your Dead Cells or your Hollow Knights, right? Like, this is the genre to be. It is the Metroidvania, the explorer, the castle crawling, unlockable section. This is kind of where it came from, right? This is the this is the game,
like 2D
right?
like 2D side scrolling adventures with RPG elements built in. How many of those are there these days? Tons.
Literally
like
dozens.
hundreds, maybe hundreds every single year. Like all kind of coming from this, like literally this franchise. It's like, because they're like, no, you having solid combat, an interesting world to explore, and rewarding people for exploring and giving them the resources to grow their character and play the way they want to. Boom, there you go. Copy and paste that, and you can do it a billion times, and it works, because it's like it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's rewarding. Like, you feel your character grow, like you feel breaking the game. Because you went from like, oh, I'm kind of struggling here, I'm taking some damage, I'm flying, I'm like the knockback is substantial. You feel weak in this game, and then all of a sudden when you break it, you're like, oh game, how the tables have turned. I am now the master, and I'm going to teach you a thing or two. And it's neat because it's like, this game gives you the freedom to experiment and be creative, but also like it rewards you for playing it the way you want to.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And like Tyson said, it is kind of it's a watershed achievement in video games, right?
Yep.
So Good job. Half of a game that we've talked about. I wonder if the other half's any good. So the ending, though, if you kill Richter, let's say you're like, I kind of want to be a jerk. I'm curious what happens. The sky opens up and absorbs Castlevania. Hooray! Alucard says he is now leaving. And mankind sucks. I wonder what happened if we beat this game normally?
Yes.
Right. And then a final, are you buying it? That's all I got for this episode. We can maybe have like a final quick thought, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks with our ending. Right in time for spooky, scary Halloween. Ooh. So are you buying it? Konami felt bad about abandoning the Sega 32X. So in the Saturn release of Symphony Night, there are 2 areas that don't exist in the PS1 version. They are crude, don't seem finished, and don't really add anything to the overall game. There are also 2 more cutscenes. So why add
2 more cutscenes?
So much more material to this other version? My theory is that they put more development time into the Sega version because they felt bad for abandoning their original game, which was called The Bloodletting. See how quickly I scrolled up? You didn't even know I was scrolling that whole time I was talking.
Yes. Well, okay, so this is very interesting, and I forget Shark Point or Sharkwave for that guy video that he goes into. He it's neat that this game was more of a spin-off game.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, they didn't realize what they had. So they were probably like, oh, we'll release this on like one thing, we'll just make a game. And then they started like kind of playing it, and then more and more of the people, the entire internal group were like, oh, this game's good. Like, you guys got something here. This is sweet. And then I was like, okay, well, let's, maybe add a Sega version as well. And you're like, okay, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, we should do this. And it's like, well, let's do this version as well. And it's like that. I feel like it was one of those things where like the more they played it and the more they developed it, the more they realized they're like, wow, we hit gold here. Yeah. So eventually, like, they didn't know what they had, so they kind of were like a little bit late to the party. So like that's why I think the Saturn release was released a little while after the PlayStation one, if I'm not mistaken. Like, there is a time difference. But it's just it shows really cool that like how this game that like was supposed to just be some side tangent-y game literally changed how Metroid and Castlevania and so many adventure games and literally happened because they were like, let's just try something fresh. It's so amazing how people in the industry are so keen on pumping out sequels and remakes and remasters and blah blah blah, whereas it's like most of the greatest achievements in games came from people just trying something fresh and new, being like, we know how this works, but let's try it this different way. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you hit lightning, you like capture lightning in a bottle, and that's kind of I think what they got with like Symphony of the Night. It's so cool. Like, this game is a game I could probably recommend to any gamer, given they're a little bit more mature and can handle some blood and gore and stuff. But yeah,
nice. And it came out June of '98, so about a year and a month after, so 13 months after.
Yeah, kind of figured.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, with that, like Tyson said, kind of wraps up this first half of the experience. We'll dive into the second half and kind of the adventures that awaits us in the inverted castle in the next time. So it's good times,
Yes. Well, I'm excited to see what leads, what's ahead of us.
Yeah.
In this inverted castle.
I mean, so far I feel like we've fought lots of like Halloween decorations. We've fought some skeletons. There's probably a pumpkin at some point. What about not really.
I think there's a headless rider at some point.
Yeah, not really scary per se, but definitely Halloween decorations of the game. So we're not scaring ourselves like we have in the past by playing the Resident Evil 2s, those terrifying experiences. But yeah, it's Halloween themed for sure. So it's a pretty nice October here on the Podtendo podcast.
Oh, totally. You got the like Wolfman. I'm sure there's Frankenstein's monster kicking around.
We haven't seen him yet, but he might.
Not yet, yeah. But there's mummies. Yeah. There's definitely skeletons. Like, I mean, you got the classic horror movie like icons right here.
It's true.
And you got to fight Dracula. Come on, what more could you ask?
Best time ever. Awesome. So with that, say bye, and then we'll pick it up in 2 weeks and finish this bad boy.
I think I gotta say James Bond.
Yeah, that's a good Halloween costume too.
Absolutely, it's easy. If you have a suit, just make sure you wear a black tie and a white shirt, and you're good to go.
Or just carry around a red vest and have a little pink gun, and you're like, I'm James Bond, because he has a tactical vest, like the end of GoldenEye, the best movie ever.
Clearly, because this is James Bond's outfit that he's worn in every single movie.
Stupid. What an asshole of a kid I was. Oh man.
Brilliant.
Yep. That's one way of putting it. All right, so with that, bye. Have a scary, spooky month. Hopefully you're watching lots of scary shows. Any scary TV recommendations before we go? What's on your schedule?
Oh, same old. You know me. I got lots of Simpsons Halloween specials to get through.
Nice.
I might watch some of the newer seasons, and that might drive me actually insane. So that's truly the most scariest thing. There's two scary movies that I'm definitely interested in watching this year, and I may have already watched one of them. So
cool, that's fun.
Yep.
Yeah, not really doing anything special. I don't want to spoil the one series I'm watching because that might ruin something else on the surprise Halloween special, maybe. So, other than that, regular scary spooky stuff like Tyson said. Got to go through my Are You Afraid of the Darks and watch those and annoy my wife. She's like, "You're a grown man. Watch something scarier." And I'm like, "This is scary. It's about a monster. It's about a sponge that lives under your stairs. So this is real life."
This is truly the darkest timeline.
What if a cat you killed came back to life? What?
What?
All right. Cool. So there you go. Are You Afraid of the Dark and Mysteries. That's what we're watching. So.
Yep.
All right. Cool. So without further ado, bye. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.